Ralph Waldo Ellison, born March 1st, 1913, was an esteemed American novelist, a literary critic, and a scholar. He was born in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Ellison is best known for his novel Invisible Man, which won the National Book Award in 1953. Ellison's transformational work ensured that he went down in history among the gods of America's literary paradises, thus securing his work's position in the literary canon. Ellison was the son of Louis Alfred Ellison and Ida Millsap. He was the second of three boys. Louis Alfred Ellison, a small business owner and a construction man, died in 1916 after an operation to cure internal wounds sustained on the job. Ellison later finds out that his father named him after Ralph Waldo Emerson in hopes that he too would one day become a poet. Little did he know his son would grow to create a legacy of his own. Emerson, very much like Ellison, was an American essayist, a lecturer, and a poet who led the Transcendentalist movement in the mid-19th century. He was seen as a champion of individualism, a critic of the countervailing pressures of society. He disseminated his thoughts through dozens of published essays, as Ellison would also go on to do. Much like Emerson, Ralph Ellison became a champion of individualism. His works, most notably The Invisible Man, is a novel that has become ingrained in the literary canon. Ellison is what I like to call a literary peacock. A male peacock has colorful feathers so as to attract female peacocks during mating. They walk around boastfully as they flaunt their superfluous yet gorgeous feathers. Ellison is rather boastful in his writing. Though he never outwardly called himself the best, he mastered the use of diction, syntax, verbiage, and every literary device known to man, and used them adroitly to inundate his audience with the knowledge of the inequities of society and how white supremacy has enslaved the minds of black people in America. Ellison's mother and her children moved to Gary, Indiana, in order to escape the hardships of the South. When life up north didn't pan out, the family returned to Oklahoma, where Ellison worked several jobs as a busboy, a shoe shine, a hotel waiter, and a dentist assistant. He was fortunate enough to receive free music instructions for the trumpet and alto sax from a family friend who would later on become the school's bandmaster. Much like the character Invisible Man, Ellison attended Tuskegee University, a prestigious historically black university founded by Booker T. Washington. Ellison applied for admission twice and was finally admitted in 1933 for lack of a trumpet player in its orchestra. Ellison hopped freight trains to get to Alabama and would soon find out that the institution was no less conscious than white institutions generally were. Critic Hilton Als believed that Ellison's outsider position at Tuskegee sharpened his satirical lens. Standing apart from the university's air of sanctimonious negritude enabled him to write about it. In passages of Invisible Man, he looks back with scorn and despair on the sniveling ethos that ruled at Tuskegee. Subsequent to his time at Tuskegee, he dropped out and moved to Harlem, New York City to study sculpture and photography. In 1938, he married Rosa Poindexter. They were married in late 1938, but their marriage ended due to an affair he had with a white woman 7 years his senior. In 1946, he married his second wife, Fanny McConnell. She worked as a photographer to sustain him while he wrote Invisible Man. Random House published his first novel, Invisible Man, in 1952. On April 16, 1952, Orville Prescott published an article in the New York Times in which he wrote, Ralph Ellison's first novel, The Invisible Man, is the most impressive work of fiction by an African Negro which I have ever read. Unlike Richard Wright and William Motley, who achieved their best effects by overpowering their readers with documentary skill, Mr. Ellison is a finished novelist who uses words with great skill, who writes with poetic intensity and immense narrative drive. Invisible Man has many flaws. It is a sensational and feverishly emotional book. It will shock and sicken some of its readers, but whatever the final verdict on Invisible Man may be, it does mark the appearance of a richly talented author. The novel follows the life of a protagonist also known as Invisible Man, in which Ellison outlines the emotional and intellectual hazards which beset the educated Negro in America. He's written the novel on two levels. The first is the level of storytelling. Historically, the ancestors of African American people used oral narratives and proverbs as a means of teaching their youth. Through these stories, they learned specific morals that are meant to guide their lives and teach them the lessons their ancestors learned the hard way. Ellison's novel is satirical in a way that is meant to enlighten the audience and the protagonist himself to its deeper message. Ellison's choice to refrain from naming the character speaks volumes in and of itself. He is invisible. He has no identity, at least none that he himself is conscious of for the majority of the novel. Readers watch as Invisible Man is slapped in the face time after time, experience after experience, all with the aim of enlightening him and giving him an identity. But Invisible Man, like many young men and women of color today, keep their blinders on out of naivete. Characters such as his grandfather, who acted as a sage, Dr. Bledsoe, the sanctimonious college president, Mr. Norton, the millionaire benefactor of the college, Lucius Brockway, the psychopathic engineer in the paint factory, Rastius Horner, and Brother Jack were all placed stylistically to jolt the Invisible Man into awareness. These characters, one by one, drew him closer to finding his identity in a society that was built upon the backs of men they so desperately wished to disregard. In 1964, he began teaching at Yale and Rutgers. The following year, a survey of 200 prominent literary figures was released that proclaimed Invisible Man the most important novel since World War II. In 1964, he received the Presidential Medal of Honor. The following year, he was made a Chevalier of the Ordre des Arts de Lettres by France and became a permanent member of the faculty at NYU as the Albert Schweitzer Professor of Humanities, serving from 1970 to 1980. In 1986, his Going to the Territory was published. This was a collection of 17 essays that included insight into the Southern novelist William Faulkner and Ellison's friend Richard Wright, as well as music from Duke Ellington and the contributions of African Americans to America's National Society. In 1992, Ellison was awarded a Special Achievement Award from the Annisville Wolf Books Award. His artistic achievements included work as a sculptor, musician, photographer, college professor, as well as his writing output. Ellison died on April 16, 1994, of pancreatic cancer. And though his life ended at the hands of cancer, his legacy will forever live on.